With most of the fantasy attention being paid to last year's top 3 rookies, there are a whole bunch of other second-year players set to make their mark in the NHL, and we'll talk all about it on the latest edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Time to dust off the old pen and pad and take down a couple of these juicy second-year player names that are set for big-time fantasy production in the upcoming NHL campaign. What is good, guys? Welcome back inside the lab to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. It's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, here for a solo episode where I'm trying to put a number of good young players in your back pocket so you're ready come draft season. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Football season right around the corner. Who, baby, we're fired up for that. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Bills season, I'm fired up. You know how we ride down in these South Niagara parts, my friends. But hockey season is what we want to talk about. Last year, Matvei Michkov, Macklin Celebrini, Lane Hudson, those were the big rookie names that everyone was talking about, and for good reason. However, there are a number of second-year players for this upcoming campaign that I have my eye on. I'll talk about 5 of them. This isn't a top 5 per se. There is a player that I like the most that I'm leaving for the end. But what the main takeaway for today's episode is, we're always trying to put these angles into your repertoire so you guys know what to do come fantasy draft season is. These are some players that might be flying under the radar in certain circles. Yeah, dedicated fantasy cats know these names. Casper, Bolduc, Stankoven, Blake, Gauthier. I'll break it down for you guys, starting with Detroit Red Wings centerman Marco Casper. And look, the rest of these names, the teams that I'm going to talk about, I have a lot more confidence in them headed into next season in terms of putting my finger on them being a playoff team. So starting with Detroit and Marco Casper, this is probably the deepest cut on the list, if not for also Jackson Blake, in terms of what to expect next season. But maybe we should expect a little bit more. This guy is 21 years old. By the way, all of the players that I'm talking about on today's show are or were 20 or 21 last season and head into this year at either 21 or 22 years old. This is a really good all-around player in Marco Casper. Last year, 19 goals, 18 assists, 156 hits, 48 block shots, and you're getting some love with the PIMs as well. 34 penalty minutes, 145 shots on net. This guy is a quality two-way forward, and he offers up a whole bunch of intrigue for me. He's also been playing professional hockey since 17 years old in the professional leagues in Europe. So this guy is also battle tested. I like what he brings to the table. I also like where he's being deployed currently anyway, projected to be deployed. If it sticks, I like it even more in between Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane as that second line center. We know he ain't knocking off Dylan Larkin for the top line center, and I really don't think JT Compher is going to push him 4 minutes, meaning even if we're not so certain about what goes down in Detroit this season, which really is the underlying concern for me with this player, is if they take a step back and not a step forward, what will it mean for his minutes, confidence, and overall production? That's a serious concern, especially when you look at this team's special teams production. Last year on the power play, 4th best in the NHL. Last year on the penalty kill, last in the NHL, dead last. Clicking, I believe, at a really embarrassing percent, which was just above 70. They need to figure some things out, and I really do think if they figure out that penalty kill, there is a good season upcoming for Detroit. We're going to have to see what breaks down on the ice. Take this in, too. 17 of his 19 goals last season, all coming at even strength. Something to keep an eye on should he continue to get, from what it looks like, at least now, early projection's sake, second line power play time with a pretty good unit. Keep your eyes on Marco Casper. Keep your eyes very close on this Detroit Red Wings club, because I'm a little bit wary. If they get off to a bad start, I'm not going to be investing in these players. And let's also be clear, Marco Casper for me is not a draftable player. He's the deepest cut on this list. He might be, though, a prototypical injury fill in the first week or two. Might be that prototypical waiver wire stream that could stick around on your team a little bit more, because if he's not going to always bring it with offensive production, although 19 goals is not exactly anything to shake a stick at, his 156 hits and his quality two-way approach leaves a lot of intrigue. Next, I'm going to talk about two Carolina Hurricanes players. By the way, you guys, if you're feeling the solo episode, drop your boy a couple of comments. Hit us with that follow button. Smash a subscribe on YouTube. I've been taking a little bit of heat for our Monday mock draft episode. Reaching on Suzuki, apparently. Reaching on Jackson Lacombe. Those are two players I'm very high on. If you missed that episode, check it out. Anyway, back to business on this episode. Second-year players that aren't Michkov, Hudson, or Celebrini that you need to be paying attention to. Jackson Blake. This is a player that obviously has NHL caliber in the family. Jason Blake, the former Leafer, longtime NHLer. His son has some offensive flair. He actually has a lot of similarities to Dad's game. And at 17 goals and 17 assists, this is a player that showed he will be sticking with this club and signed a long-term deal as well. Currently projected, once again, this is what I'm trying to buy into here, guys. Aside from the Detroit Red Wings, teams that I really like, teams on the rise, or teams that have already solidified themselves as true playoff threats, those are the clubs that I'm going to tell you to go out there and heavily invest in their players, even the second-year players. Jackson Blake right now, center or on the right wing with Seth Jarvis and Taylor Hall. Obviously, these lines are early and things could shift around. But I think what I'm playing at here is Jackson Blake has top six written all over it. They're invested into this player now, and I think he is another prototypical, again, this guy I would put a little bit higher in terms of draft stock than a Marco Casper, who I wouldn't be drafting. I'm okay taking a Jackson Blake, mid to late rounds. He's a nice offensive fill-in. The Carolina Hurricanes are a very, very good team back to front. Let's not forget that. And one of the reasons why they are so good, I bring this stat up all the time, Carolina Hurricanes allowed the league low 24.9 shots against per game. And yeah, that's not a Jackson Blake thing, but that allows the forward group to be propped up and to really do their thing when you know that the back end is taken care of and it's neat and tidy. Jackson Blake is a name that I think I had to come on here and throw out. Definitely a good player in those deeper leagues. And at the end of the day, he's got the scoring skills. He's got the nose for the net and a high energy type forward with a ton of upside. Already put up 34 points last year, 30 PIMs. I could see with confidence and more ice time, the shot total of 142 also going up. So pay attention. Pay attention to the rest of today's episode, I hope, bringing you some fantasy angles to get you ready for upcoming draft season, which is right around the corner, my friends. Speaking of which, Logan Stankoven coming up right after the break quickly. I also got Cutter Gauthier, Zach Bolduc, a couple of honorable mentions perhaps. Make sure you guys are here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all the rest of August, and then we will be back to 5 episodes a week when the puck drops on this upcoming NHL season. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL season right around the corner. August 26th, however, is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who love bold predictions and preseason hunches. For 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions, whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off. This is your moment. Take a flyer on somebody even like a Lamar Jackson. That's a favorite pick, but I'm feeling it. Crown your champion in August. Buffalo Bills, baby, or parlay your division winner dark horses. Visit FanDuel.com today or download the app and start making your futures bets now. Futures Day is one day and one day only. That's, of course, with our friends at FanDuel. Play your game. We will not be playing any games on the rest of today's episode, my friends, because this is an angle that astute fantasy hockey GMs have their finger on the pulse at almost all times. Young players on the rise, players emerging, looking to really establish themselves before too many other GMs know exactly what we're working with here. Also, you want to be spotting players who perhaps everyone, like I alluded to, Michkov, Hudson, Celebrini, Those are players that you're going to have to go after a lot earlier in drafts, so I'm trying to provide some value with some other opportunity as well. Logan Stankoven, an offensive dynamo, very exciting and talented young player with the puck on his stick, an undersized forward to be sure, but his on-ice energy coaches love, and it's going to fit real well with Rod Brindamore, I promise. 14 goals, 24 assists last season for 38 points, 194 shots on net, and a really good shot at that. If you see a player with this limited amount of ice time, this limited amount of opportunity in Dallas, and I'll bring that up in a second in terms of his actual time on ice. I know it was about 15 minutes or less. It couldn't have been any more. He was buried in the Dallas Stars system. And you might look at that Carolina Hurricanes right side and go Svechnikov, Jackson Blake, I just talked about, Logan Stankoven. Where does he fit in? I have a feeling he's going to fit in just fine, and he will find his minutes. Last year, total time on ice, 15:05. I see that going up significantly. Like I said, this is an offensive dynamo. He's gotten it done also at basically every single pro level that he's touched. Prolific numbers in the minors. And let's also remember, he's showing early on in his career that he's actually a clutch performer. How about 5 goals, 3 assists for 8 points in 15 games played last season to go along with 2 game-winning goals? Also, you don't exactly draft this player for the peripheral love, but I'm going to take what I can get because he doesn't mind throwing that body around, nearly 50 hits, 30-plus block shots. The value here lies in 2 things. Him being tied to this very good Carolina team and him not having to worry about that defensive end because it's sorted, and I think the ability for him to put up points in a hurry. That's how I look at this player. I look at him and Jackson Blake as 2 cornerstone pieces of this franchise moving forward. The contracts indicate as such. Keep it tapped to right here. We'll be trying to track all of these players we throw out over the course of the year so you guys know exactly what to do with them, when to draft them, and then perhaps when to let them go. We'll get down that road, and oh, baby, I am so fired up for this NHL season. I was just talking about NFL. It's a betting degenerates Sunday coming up in a very short period of time. Let's get to my last 2 players. Today's episode, short and sweet, my friends. Shout out to Steele on the IR. What the Montreal Canadiens have been putting together here this offseason and what they've been building towards the last couple of seasons should really now start to, I know Montreal Canadiens fans have been excited, it should really start to entice fantasy GMs. I was taking a lot of heat for my Nick Suzuki pick too early in our mock draft, and I guess maybe I'm just very high on that player, perhaps too high. But when I look at a guy like Zachary Bolduc, who they bring in that Logan Mailloux trade, maybe that works out for both clubs. Obviously, there's some upside with that blue liner. St. Louis looking for some young depth on their blue line. Zachary Bolduc, I think this is a steal for the Montreal Canadiens, and I almost hate coming on here and tipping my hand as much as I am because I want this guy on my team this upcoming season, full stop. Love his ability to mix it up. 108 hits last season. He also was doing what he was doing, 36 points, 37 penalty minutes, 120 shots on net, in only 12 minutes and 48 seconds of ice time per night. He now is going to get a much better opportunity, I would say, to establish himself as a professional, everyday player and a reliable fantasy piece, looking like he could get a chance on the second line with the Montreal Canadiens. Kirby Dach, Ivan Demidov. You immediately then want a piece of what Zach Bolduc brings to the table. And what he brings to the table, long range, he's a very talented, opportunistic forward that finds those nose for the net type situations. After he signed his deal with the Montreal, got signed his entry-level contract with the St. Louis Blues, he put up 105 goals in back-to-back seasons with the Quebec Ramparts, I believe. He skates really well, and his hand-eye coordination is impressive. That all translates into a player that I think now also returning to home province of Quebec, where he played his junior hockey as well. He played with Rimouski, I think, as well. I'm going to get it right, whether the Ramparts or the Rimouski Oceanic. It was one of those two, okay? The point remains that this is a player that I do feel a little bit gutless having to tip my hand on. That's how high I am on this player. And if you think 19, call it 20 goals in 72 games was impressive, I think finishing 8th in Calder voting, a good season under his belt, this guy is primed for a big second-year season, and not nearly enough people are talking about him. We saw what Ivan Demidov can do. If those two players form some chemistry and Kirby Dach returns to the form that he had last season in very limited time before he got hurt, that's going to be a dangerous line for this Montreal Canadiens team and Marty St. Louis to deploy. And then you'll be coming on here and saying, Uncle Flip, we really appreciate you throwing out Zach Bolduc's name. I am buying into this Montreal Canadiens team. Full speed ahead. Love what they have going on. We've spoken about Sam Montembeault. They add Noah Dobson as well, and that might add another wrinkle because Zach Bolduc will not be making the top power play unit. Not unless some very unforeseen situations unravel and some injuries happen. He likely falls to the second power play unit. But if you're thinking either Hudson, which I think is power play number one, locked all in, or Noah Dobson more likely on that secondary power play unit now, and you can really mix around some love, Bolduc, Dach, Newhook, Patrick Laine, and Noah Dobson, that could be a feast or famine type situation that until we see it shake out on the ice, I'm just going to remain cautiously optimistic and very much fired up for what the Montreal Canadiens have in store next season. I hope you feel the same way about what we have in store on Friday's episode. Make sure you guys come back and check that out. Next week, more breakdowns, more top 5, top 10s coming up. We got some special guests on the way as well, so make sure you keep it tapped. You know the drill. Drop us a 5-star review. We appreciate all that feedback. We'll get to Cutter Gauthier right after the break. However, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. You ever need to hire, you need Indeed, and you realize you needed to hire someone yesterday. How do you find those candidates fast? It's easy. You use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed truly is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed, sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Right now, you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon today and support the show by saying you heard about it on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you're hiring, you know what it is. Indeed is all you need. I hope as well, all you need is a couple more of these good young players ready to make a step in their second season in the NHL. And sure, let me be clear. Michkov, Hudson, Celebrini, those are for sure the 3 second-year players that I'm going after first. However, they are going to be gone a lot earlier than this. On NHL's.com's top 200 rankings, the player I'm about to talk about right now, Cutter Gauthier, comes in at the highest ranked player that I'm talking about today at 130th. Then Bolduc at 162, Stankoven at 170, and Jackson Blake at 173. Like I mentioned, Marco Casper doesn't make the list, but boy, oh boy, Cutter Gauthier definitely does. And this is one of those players that I think is quickly turning into this season's fantasy darling, or at least one of them, that a whole bunch of fantasy GMs are ready to reach and ready to invest on this player. Reaching is always something that can burn you. I've been a victim of it in the past myself. 130th ranked, so let's say he's going maybe in some deeper leagues, he's going around the 9th or 10th round, perhaps earlier with this upside. I could see it. I could see some GMs taking him in even earlier, maybe 7th or 8th round, perhaps, if you're really buying into what this Anaheim Ducks team is doing. And you look at a player like Cutter Gauthier, obviously a lot going on with the Philadelphia trade. Things have settled. And last year he proved that he deserves to be a top 6 forward, even a top line forward, 5th overall draft pick from a couple of seasons ago. He's got the size. He's got the power to really push past opponents with ease. The one thing I would like to see is his playmaking continue to make that step. He's versatile. He's got power forward written all over him with a ton of upside. And let's take in the stats from last year. 68 hits, 51 block shots. He played a full 82 games, kind of hopefully alluding to his durability as a player. 20 Genos, 24 assists, 20 penalty minutes, 190 shots on net. And if we're thinking that this good, young Ducks team is ready to take that step, which I would say they are very much so, get ready for a whole bunch of good young players on this Anaheim Ducks team to be poised for big production seasons in this upcoming 2025-26 campaign. Cutter Gauthier is a player that I want badly, almost as badly as Zachary Bolduc. When it comes down to it, though, the Ducks are still the Ducks, and buying into a team that last year had the worst power play unit in the NHL, sat near the top in terms of goals allowed. They were 10th worst in the NHL, so they're improving there. That has a lot to do with what I would say is going on in the crease with Lucas Dostal and a number of good young defensemen, Jackson Lacombe, Mintyukov, and others, Olin Zellweger as well. Cutter Gauthier is a player that I expect this season 60-plus points from, no problem, and that means he becomes very much fantasy relevant. Almost one season in, his value goes right through the roof. 20 goals, I'm going to say 25 to 30 is in the realm. Expect a really good year from this Ducks core in terms of taking that step. I might be repeating myself a little bit here. The point remains. Jackson Blake, Cutter Gauthier, Logan Stankoven, Zachary Bolduc, Marco Casper. Keep those guys in the barrel. Make sure you continue to tap into the pod. We'll have more angles to cover, so you guys are ready to go come draft season. I hope the short and sweet episode today with your boy has been enjoyable. Make sure you check us out all the rest of the week and next week, and we'll be back to make sure you're ready to go when September arrives. Peace.